Aloha, I'm Charlie Schlather, and I am the Human Services instructor for the Introduction to Human Services, the class that I'm going to talk about how I use the RAD techniques in my classroom. So, this is an introductory course, and so I decided to use what I learned from RAD to create discussion questions for the week that were based on the reading. So I call them the reading assignment question. And I'm going to start out by just talking about how I decide how to develop the question. I begin by thinking about what the central theme of the course is going to be for that week. And in this particular example, I'm going to use my first week, which is why do people need human services? This is kind of the overlapping theme of the chapter. And so I choose my reading assignment question based on what I think I could get students to start thinking about what it is that the chapter means to me personally. And I ultimately want them to have something to take away that relates not only to the week, but also to the entire semester, some of the main areas that I want them to take away from the semester. Okay. So I also, in my questions, I want to try to have it relate somewhat to an SLO in the course. And for this one, exploring personal bias is the one that actually relates to this question. Okay, so the question I have here is to consider a conversation you've had or overheard where the term welfare queen has been used, and then what beliefs were shared in this. As you can see, I actually allowed them to talk about maybe their own perspective, but also the perspective maybe they heard from somebody else, which kind of allows them to depersonalize their own ideas and put it in a third-person perspective. So that helps them feel a little more comfortable sharing an idea or a concept maybe they have that maybe they're a little uncomfortable about. Okay, so I also spend time in class talking about the actual question. I spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes making sure they understand the question and also the importance of having answered the question before the class, for next class. I kind of make it a big deal in a sense. And I also want them to think about how they can consider the question over the course of the week, kind of ponder the question and add to it as they get to the final right before we have our class discussion. Okay, so then getting to the part where we actually have the class, I will have developed my class with consideration for the discussion question to make sure, in my mind, I want to make sure that the students really see that I feel it's an important question to answer. And so I'll make sure that in my lecture and in the time leading up to the discussion that I will have highlighted that question in some form or another. And I'll put it into context based on not only the textbook, but just the general discussion I want them to have in class. After that, I'll pair them up into groups of just 2 or 3, and then I'll encourage them during the time that they're answering the 3 questions you see. I'll have them have their textbooks out and be utilizing their textbook as they think about their answers. So one of the things I have them do is talk about the concept and then find a way to refer to what the textbook says about that concept. And so in that situation, it's okay that they may not have recognized some of the issues in the textbook as long as them and their partner agreed to outline it in their answer that they've created together. After that, I'll have them share as a classroom, the different groups share together, and then get into the larger classroom discussion. And my hope is that in having them refer to the textbook not only as small groups, but also as a classroom, that when an issue comes up in the class, that somebody is able to look through the textbook and find where the textbook talks about that concept so that people understand that we are going to be referring to the textbook often in the class and that they need to not only bring their textbook, but also have at least some familiarity with where everything is in the textbook, where the concepts talked about and what other areas in the textbook that refer to what we're going to talk about in that class. And I find that that helps them get familiar with each chapter and with the textbook as a whole. Okay, so that's the classroom discussion. That, all in all, that the classroom discussion may take up a third of the class. It really depends on what the topic is. But I make sure that that discussion question at least addresses a significant part of the class. And so I'm going to share with you a couple of my experiences in using the reading assignment. I think that the reading assignment, certainly in my experience, it improves student engagement in the textbook itself, but also in just being ready for class, seeing their responsibility to be ready to participate and to give to the classroom discussion. I think that's when I don't use the reading assignment, I notice that doesn't happen as well, that people are not as prepared to come to class. But the other side of that coin is it also requires a lot of planning and consideration on my part. There's actually more upfront cost for me in putting the reading assignments in on a regular basis. And I certainly try to utilize the reading assignment more weeks than not. And so that requires me to have thought through my full course and where I want to put the reading assignments, have them in my syllabus, have them in my schedule. And so that does require some upfront costs on my part, timing. But I have to say that that being said, that it makes me a better instructor. It makes me have to think a lot more about what I'm going to be doing for the class, and it helps me to kind of be more on my toes as an instructor. And beyond that, I think that I've certainly had to go through a lot of iterations. I started out a certain way and had to really refine that, and I've making sure, for example, that I had enough of a point system, enough of a an assessment tool there, so that students took it seriously, and also, like I said before, having put more emphasis during class, not only while we're discussing it in class to make sure that they saw it was relevant, but also spending that time the week before, making sure that they know what the reading assignment is and that it's important that we're going to be discussing it in class, and that I might even pick it up. There's times during each class, especially the first couple of weeks, I will pick up those assignments and look at them and give some feedback. And so that's been helpful to have people engage more in the assignment itself. But I really encourage any of you that are learning these ideas to think about ways that you could play with it and work together. As different faculty have given me some other ideas on how they do it, and I think that there's a lot of potential in this, and I think there's a lot more ways to utilize this than certainly I've figured out. And I'm interested in working with other people to learn how they're having success in it as well. So, good luck to you, and take care.